All right, so for the second part of this would be getting the density of my metal. And so I measured the mass of the metal plus the picnometer. I'll put those values in for my 5 trials. Okay, oops. And I want to put in the uncertainty of the scale as well. And that is going to be 0.01, oops, 0.01. And you know what, that's the same all down. So I'm just going to actually fill that down. I don't need to type that in. Now, by the way, when you do fill downs on this, especially in Excel, I've noticed if you just type in 0.01 and fill down, sometimes what it does when you do that is it'll like make this 0.02, 0.03, 0.04, 0.05. So be careful on that. If you're getting some goofy numbers, go back and look at your sheet when you do those and just make sure that it's what you want it to be. Don't trust it too much. Instead of me putting, I'll just put the ABS here, I guess, so that we can see it. Oh, resize the column. And again, I like to always get the percentage just in case you never know when I need it. So that's going to equal the absolute divided by the total times 100. And I can fill down for all of those values. So I have all my uncertainties and stuff added in for my metal plus picnometer. And then I've got the picnometer plus the metal plus the water values. And this is what I got for these. And lastly, 45.4. And the same thing, I want the uncertainties of that. And it looks like, let me just try to fill it down and see if it stays how it should. It does. All right, so I got all my values there. And I should get the absolutes. Oh, that's sorry, the uncertain, the percent ones. That's what I'm looking for. And I need to resize this. And you know what? I should probably put in here ABS. Okay. And the same thing. It equals the absolute over the total times 100. And I'll fill those down as well. Okay, now, as far as the mass of the water goes, now it's time for some calculations. That's going to equal whatever I got for all of these together, and I'm going to subtract off just the mass plus the picnometer. And I will fill that down, and I have all my different values for it. I need the uncertainty on that, and so because I did subtraction, this value minus this value, I have to add their absolute uncertainties. And I will just add those two. And I'm going to get 0.02 for each of these, I believe. I will then see if I can get the percentage on that. Oops. So that's going to equal the 0.02 divided by that total number times 100. And there it goes. It's all set for me. All right, so now the time would be to get the volume of the water. And this is somewhat similar to part 1. I still have the density of the water for the day right here, or probably over the 2 days. There it is. And remember that the percent uncertainty on that is 0%. So if I want this, it is going to equal the mass of the water. So this one right here. Now, I didn't click on that one. I used my arrow keys to slide over, but works the same. And I will divide it by the density. Now remember, I'm going to fill down. So I want those dollar signs around this C6. So I'm going to press F4 to put those in. You might have to do like a Command F4 or something like that on a Macintosh computer. Otherwise, if you're having trouble, just type them in, the dollar signs. It still works. Okay, we'll do that, and then we will fill that down. And there's going to be my volume of water. Now, I'm probably going to get the percentage. D volume, the percent uncertainty first. Can't get my W in there. There we go. And that's going to equal the density uncertainty, which is 0, plus the percentage uncertainty on the water. And so I will just do that and then fill those down. And we'll just slide over here a little bit. And I can easily do this. I can say equals, I want the absolute uncertainty as well. And that's going to equal this percentage. I got to divide it by 100 to get it back to the decimal format, and then times it by the actual value. And so here's all my absolute volume of water uncertainties. Just in case I need them, I might not, but just in case, there they are. Okay, well now I would like to get the volume of the metal that I put in there. And so the volume of the metal sample, well, I know the actual volume of the pycnometer is right here. That's the total volume. And I have the volume of the water. So I can subtract these values. So I'm going to say that equals the volume of this pycnometer. But again, I'm going to fill this down. So I'm going to lock this value with my dollar signs. And then I'm going to subtract the volume of the water. And this is what I get, and we will fill that down. If you fill down, you get some goofy numbers. You didn't put the dollar signs in where they're supposed to be. You can see my reference right up here to the cell. And let's get the absolute uncertainty on that. Well, the absolute uncertainty on this is the same as the percentage uncertainty, but I don't have those here. So what I need to do is this. I have a value, and I got the average on part 1, but I forgot to get the uncertainty average as well. And so I'm just going to average these uncertainties. And so I can average these here. I typed in equals average, open parenthesis, and highlighted those 3 values. And I can do the same right here for the absolute ones, but I can also just left click, and instead of me going down like this to fill down, I can go over to the right and it'll still work, and it'll take the average of those values. And so now I have the average absolute uncertainty for that. So it's going to equal this value. Don't forget to lock it. And I will add to it the absolute uncertainty of the water volume. Okay, and I will then fill those down. And for good measure, I'm going to get the volume of the metal percent, okay, and that's going to equal this absolute divided by the total volume times 100, and we will fill that down. And so I've got these for percentage uncertainties. And now lastly, I can get the mass, do I have the mass of the metal? Okay, you maybe have done this earlier, but I'm going to now try to figure out what the mass of that metal. So I've got the volume of the metal I put in that pycnometer with the water, but I want to know what the mass of the metal is. And this probably I could have done earlier. I didn't have to wait till this part to do this. But all that's going to equal is, I'm going to hit the equal sign, and then I'm going to scroll back so I can see it. Equals, it would be this value here, the mass of the metal plus pycnometer, and I'm going to subtract the average mass of my pycnometer, and I have to lock that average mass. So here's the other thing that I would say about this. You maybe did your numbers a little differently. Like you maybe actually weighed and know exactly the mass of the metal, and if that's the case, you could just type those in right now. You wouldn't be doing a calculation here. But I didn't do that with mine, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to fill down what my values are going to be. Now actually, if you knew exactly what the mass of your metal was by weighing it directly, now you would type in your absolute uncertainties, and they would be 0.01 for you. I didn't do that, so I have to actually get my absolutes and all that. So anyway, the uncertainty here would also be the average of these values, right? So I had 0.2 for an average. I would have to equal, average here, and I don't really need a spreadsheet to take an average of these 3 numbers, 0.01. But just so you see, there it is. Okay. So anyway, my absolute uncertainty here is going to be the uncertainty of the numbers I use to get this. So I'm going to take this number, and I'm going to add to it that number there, which I want to lock as well. That's because I did it where I didn't really pre-weigh my metal ahead of time. And so all my answers here are going to be 0.02. Now again, if you weighed your metal directly, you could just type your numbers in. You wouldn't have a calculation here. And yours all would probably be 0.01 here for the uncertainties. So just keep that in mind. Now you look at it and say, okay, that was actually a better way. I'd have less uncertainty for this. I'm almost done. Let me just get my percentage on this. So we'll equal 0.02 divided by the total value times 100. And we'll fill that down. Okay, and then lastly, I can get the density of the metal, the thing that I have been looking for here. That is going to equal the mass of my metal divided by the volume of my metal. And that's what I have for density, and I can fill that all the way down. As far as uncertainties go, I'm going to do the percentages first. Because I did division, I have to add the percents. So I'm going to add this mass percent one. and I'll add it to the volume percent of the metal. And we can fill that down. And now lastly, if I wanted, I can have these right here. And it will equal this number divided by 100 times the overall value. And we'll fill that down. Okay, so now I have all these numbers. I used abbreviations. These don't look nice. So I don't want to use these abbreviations in a formal lab report because no one knows what's going on. You shouldn't use the abbreviations. Also, I've got way too many sig figs here. So I need to clean this up a little bit. One trick I could show you with a spreadsheet would be, hey, if I wanted to actually see these things work a little better, I can left click and highlight all these. And then if I right click on them, see if they have it. Usually there's a formatting. Let's see if it's conditional formatting. I can't remember exactly in Google Sheets. Format style, default, custom format. Oh, I thought there was a way to do this. Let me see. I know in Excel it's really easy to do. Let me just see. Let me highlight them again. Oh, did I color format these cells? Shoot. Well, I can do that too, but I think maybe it's this one here. Yeah, if I wanted to display, look at me, I only highlighted a few of them. It looks like this little arrow key. I can make it so it displays less numbers. That doesn't mean it doesn't remember the full value. So it's not like it disappears. It doesn't round for me. That's just all it displays. But if I want to make more too, I can do this as well. And so there's a way you can change the display. I know a lot of people like to copy and paste. Be careful with that because our tables in our word processor shouldn't look like they've been copied and pasted out of a spreadsheet. But this is one way you can maybe clean this up. And I could like highlight all these and be like, hey, let's use a little bit less digits here. And you can do that if you like it, or no, I want some of those digits back. So I can let you play around with that. That is the end of this, and you should have enough numbers now to go ahead and calculate out your part 2. Oh yeah, one last thing. You might want this. I spelled average wrong, but forgive me. Equals average, open parenthesis, and I can take the average of those density values, and there's my average density. And if I want my average of these values, I can just do this little fill here, and it just took the average percent uncertainty of my density and my average absolute uncertainty.